Okay, so I said in my last video that I would talk a little bit more about how the functions of judgment in the INFJ, namely FE and TI, are not necessarily to be hyper cultivated, hyper used, hyper invested at all costs. This is sometimes a mistake that people make when they are very, very interested in this whole idea of the path of individuation, or the path of the self with a capital S, the Jungian self, the center of the personality that is meant to blossom out of the reconciliation of opposites, including reconciliation of NI and SE, reconciliation of FE and TI, and this complete quaternity of integration where the person becomes a full person. It's a long historical process, the process of a whole lifetime. Sometimes people think that really what they should be doing is massively invest all the functions. So try to, use NI as much as possible, try to FE as much as possible, try to TI as much as possible, and SE as much as possible. And out of this hyper investments in activities that demand, use of those functions, marshalling those functions, further integration of those functions will happen. And as a result of this process, a sort of fast track to individuation, which in INFJ language, at least in my INFJ language, the INFJ language of my books, the process of spiritualization, if you want to know more about the process of spiritualization. But other things like INFJ love, INFJs as infinite souls, the spirituality of INFJs, the personas of the INFJ, and the laughter of INFJs. You should check out my book, The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World. It's available at the first link below. Check the reviews. It's already helped a lot of people. It's about how INFJs can find meaning, purpose, and value in a world that we often consider to be hostile. So check it out. Now, the path of spiritualization is actually not really about obsessively trying to use all your functions all the time, or at least getting to a sufficient level of proficiency where you can be considered a fairly complete and versatile being, in the sense of a being that can flexibly use their different functions when the time comes, or, the thing about the functions of judgment in the INFJ is that they can easily become over-invested. This happened less with SE, by the way. Issues with SE have much more to do in general, like 95% of the time, have much more to do with under-investing SE. I've talked about this recently. Under-investing SE, neglecting SE, SE falling, more and more of the whole SE structure falling into the unconscious, and then rising in opposition and pushing one into a grip state. So undervaluation of SE causes anxiety, but it's often overvaluation of FE and TI that causes anxiety, particularly when this overvaluation of FE and TI is, in many ways, an overinvestment of the superego at the expense of the id and the ego. So if we accept that the inner world of INFJs is oceanic, right? It's not too structured. It's quite fluid. It has a certain flow to it. Sometimes it's tidal waves, although that's rare. Mostly it's either waves or wavelets or great ocean calm. It depends. NI has its own way. NI takes care of itself. This is a phrase that I'm using all the time now because I think that phrase is pregnant with meaning. Let the waves happen when they may. Let the oceanic calmness happen when it may. Maybe when there's a bit of a tidal wave, that's also a sign that there's an interstice about to open up in external reality, and a moment of adaptation to be seized in an overall non-commitment to complete adaptation. It's a weird notion, so I want to really emphasize this in as clear a way as possible. The most natural and harmonious way for INFJs to adapt to external reality whilst retaining their authenticity, which I think is the key to leading a life that is quite free of anxiety and in a good flow, experiencing good flow. And again, these, really check this book if you want to know more about all these topics, because I do dive into these topics, no pun intended, since I've been talking about oceans and water. The key, of course, in a sense, is to trust NI, and that NI takes care of itself, and in taking care of itself, it takes care of you. Maybe that's another way of putting the matter. NI will take care of you if you let it do that. But it's not permanent adaptation. The key for INFJ is to not obsess. Obsession with adaptation does not lead to good adaptation for INFJs. So let me repeat this. Obsession with adaptation does not lead to adaptation. What leads to good adaptation for INFJs, for the well-being of INFJs, for the flourishing of the INFJs, is trust in NI. Because NI takes care of itself, and NI will know when to tell you there's a moment of adaptation right there to be seized, an interstice. But the less an INFJ really trusts that NI can do this, or NI takes care of itself, either because they devalue NI, more so in the compliant way, or because they feel like NI can only be freed up in terms of its full potential by being invested or by being sort of channeled by TI or FE, which is another way of missing the point. When the judging function is in the driver's seat and no longer NI, you get a TI-ified NI world or an FE-ified NI world. What I find in practice is that it's actually more common for the superegoic person, the superegoic INFJ, to have a TI-ified NI world. And that's probably easy to understand. It's just the fact that TI is the easiest function to apply to the NI world because it's an introverted function, just like the NI function is an introverted function. So you can sort of press a TI frame against the NI ocean because both functions are somehow, they're inside, and you can sort of grab one and push it against the other. And a lot of INFJs do that without realizing. Sometimes they think their TI is not good, but then when they share what they consider to be their NI worldviews, their NI insights, their NI inspirations, you immediately notice, if you have a keen eye, that their paragraphs are pervaded through and through with TI rationalization, with TI organization, with TI cleanliness of conceptualization, and that breaks the rhythm of NI. Right? And that's why it's not good to do that. That's why just using a lot of TI is not necessarily good for an INFJ. And we really have to divorce ourselves from this idea that using our auxiliary and tertiary functions a lot, perhaps all the time, is really not necessarily the right way to go. We have to make peace, for example, with the fact that we have TI child. Tertiary TI is TI child. We'll never have TI as a world like an INTP does. We might as well just forget about that fantasy, not only because it's a fantasy, but because it's inimical to our well-being. Anything that breaks the flow of your NI ocean, whether internally or in how you lead your life, if you ignore interstices, when you break the flow, there's a damming up. And when there's a damming up, there's frustration. And when there's frustration, there's anxiety. So it's all about drifting. It's all about letting yourself go. It's all about trusting the guiding hand of NI. It's about trusting NI will take care of itself, and it will be able to tell you, okay, in this case, maybe I need a little bit of TI clarity. Maybe in this case, I need a bit of TI cleansing of my concepts. Not all the time, in specific strategic moments. Okay, at this point, maybe I need a bit of FE engagement with the external world, and through it, some SE stimulation as well. Trust the guiding hand of NI. Okay? Don't forget, I've written another book on the INFJ personality, my first book, which is a bit of a classic now, called The Ecstatic Soul, a new look at the INFJ personality. And this is basically the most in-depth and deepest investigation of the INFJ mind and what's it like to be an INFJ. So get it today, check the reviews there. It's helped a lot of people. So a lot of reviews might just want to make you want to get the book. And finally, guys, last but not least, you know that the lifeblood of my channel is your generosity. I could not do it without you. I want to emphasize this. I could not do it without you, without your kind support on Patreon. There's a link to my Patreon page for quite a small amount every month, really. You get access, you help me, first of all, but you get access to really some really cool perks, like a Discord server, access to bonus videos on a topic of your choosing every 2 or 3 weeks, and other perks too. Hopefully see you there. Link is below. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.